Maplewood police officers and law enforcement from across the metro joined forces for a good cause. We'll tell you how in this half hour.
Winter has its rules. We'll tell you how breaking them can cost you. Plus, Maplewood Police Department welcomes some new faces.
We'll have these stories and more on this edition of Your Police Report. I'm Carrie Crotty.
And I'm Lon Bakey. February is a month of love, so we have to make sure we have healthy hearts.
February is also American Heart Month. Here's a story of a heart survivor who's promoting heart healthy awareness.
I had a feeling there was something wrong with my heart, but I wouldn't have believed that I was actually having a heart attack.
In 2009, Jennifer Marine, then 38, on her way home from a ski trip with her parents and husband, pulled into a Wyoming truck stop after blizzard conditions caused highways to close. And that's when she says she felt extreme pressure in her chest, like elephants sitting on top of her.
I said, guys, I think something's wrong with me. My heart's pounding, I have this pressure.
As luck would have it, there was a hospital in town. The doctor did blood tests and suggested she stay overnight. Since the highways were closed, Jennifer stayed, which turned out to be a blessing. Tests revealed she'd suffered a heart attack. She was flown to a bigger hospital with a cardiac unit where doctors put 4 stents to repair a torn artery.
At first, I thought, why did this happen to me? Why do I have to have a heart attack? 38, this isn't right. Then I'm told not to have kids after that, and there seemed to be a fair amount of loss. And then one day I thought, well, why not me? I mean, these things happen to anyone. And that was a pretty cool revelation, just to think, well, it's okay. I mean, life goes on.
About a month after Jennifer returned home, she woke up one morning with those overwhelming chest pains and anxiety once again. Her torn artery from the heart attack had torn even further, and another stent was administered. That's when doctors discovered she had something called SCAD, sudden coronary artery dissection. After getting a second opinion at the Mayo Clinic, doctors also diagnosed her with fibromuscular dysplasia, a condition that makes the arteries weak, thin, and bumpy, like a string of beads.
So it was really overwhelming and extremely scary, because I just felt so alone and so like a landmine. I mean, I felt like my body was just gonna explode.
But Jennifer, with support from her family, went on with life and continued working. And then, just days after celebrating 1 year since her heart attack, that same torn artery tore even more, and she had a 6th stent put in.
Not only did it make me realize that all the days are precious, but I have a responsibility to do something with my life.
And so Jennifer went to work. She started a Facebook page for SCAD survivors and contacted the American Heart Association about volunteering. The organization's mission is to educate women on heart disease and risk factors.
Heart disease is a broad range term, and a lot of people don't realize that a lot of things encompass heart disease. Diabetes, high cholesterol, atherosclerosis, where your arteries are clogged, peripheral arterial disease, where you have circulation problems in your legs, stroke, high blood pressure. All of these things are all part of heart disease.
Warmke says heart disease kills more women than the next 5 causes of death combined, including all forms of cancer. It's also largely preventable.
We remind women that too often we put ourselves last. We're taking care of our husbands, our dogs, our kids, our parents, and we're like, I'll get to myself later. I'll do exercise next week. I gotta do laundry. I gotta go grocery shopping. I gotta pick the kids up, But you won't be able to do any of those things. You won't be able to take care of your family if you're not there for them, if you don't take care of yourself.
The American Heart Association has helped save over 600,000 lives, and their Go Red campaigns have raised more than $300 million for research and education.
It's one of those things you think, oh, heart disease isn't in my family, and then when you stop and think about it, it is. It really touches you and it touches everyone in some way. There's usually somebody in your family or your friends that's been affected, or soon enough they will be.
Jennifer Marine is healthy and working on a memoir titled I Lived. And despite her difficult journey, she says she wouldn't have it any other way.
I don't know if I could change the story. I don't know if I would. That's the positive.
For more heart health information, go to American Heart Association's website. The Target information breach has dominated the news in recent weeks.
After 70 million customers' information was compromised, people want to know what they can do to protect their identities. Lieutenant Mike Shortreed is here to tell us how to protect ourselves. Welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome, Mike. Now, with that Target breach, it seems like the identity theft is becoming more and more prevalent. Is it because of technology, or why do you think that's happening?
I don't know that identity theft is becoming more prevalent. I think that the media attention that's given to identity theft has now had a renewed source for the public. I mean, when you talk about that amount of volume of breaches and the media attention that it's gotten, I don't know that this is any different than what's already existed. It's just that the media has given it the attention. Technology definitely kind of has put it in the forefront, just because of the nature of that particular incident. But more importantly, I mean, as we've talked about previously, the three of us have been retail crime officers over our careers, and identity theft has been around for quite some time.
Yeah, I think it just makes it easier.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, what can people do to protect themselves?
We alluded to it last month, but vigilance is first and foremost. I mean, as a person who is the possible or could become the victim of identity theft, I mean, you want to protect your own data. I mean, you want to protect your social security number. You want to protect, your anything dealing with your identity, your date of birth, your full name, whether it's something as simple as just not leaving that stuff available for others to have access to it, or more importantly, I mean, if you know something has been stolen, filing a police report right away and putting the fraud alerts on your credit reports so that it can be hopefully stopped before it becomes an issue.
And something that is now available that we still don't use that much, there's an identity theft piece to the BCA that we run.
Right.
And so that might be
into the future,
nice
absolutely, something
Yep.
that we can push forward. I mean, in the Maplewood Police Department, I mean, obviously we've had retail crime officers for many years, and that will be up and coming again this spring with people working out of the Maplewood Mall, where we have our higher concentration of these types of crimes. I mean, what will end up happening is we have dedicated staff that work on identity theft issues, credit card fraud issues, check forgery issues, which all combine together to kind of push forward that identity theft issue. So,
You mentioned reporting the stuff to your credit. I'm assuming we should also then be checking our credit.
it's highly encouraged. I mean, because what you don't know, you can't take care of. I mean, so if you check your credit report, I mean, we encourage people to do it at least once a year. Most of the three major credit reporting agencies usually allow one free report a year. And it's just to your advantage to check up and see if there's been any activity that you may not even be aware of. I mean, it's amazing just because it is so prevalent in day-to-day activity. Some people may not even know they're victims until well after the fact. So it's definitely one thing that's encouraged of people to do.
So if I know that my wallet was stolen, which had my social security card in it, which we don't recommend, what should I do?
Obviously, file a police report. I mean, make sure that it is documented through the local law enforcement agency. But then also, like I said, contact those credit reporting agencies to file a fraud alert, letting them know that
Okay.
your identity may potentially be compromised. Get that fraud alert on your credit report. What ends up happening is if other identities are created using your social security number, that can now be flagged through the credit reporting agencies so that hopefully it can be stopped before it happens.
Sure.
Those are the big things. I mean, we really do try to take a proactive approach to it. I mean, when people talk about theft of their mail, or they talk about theft of their wallets, or anything such as that. You know, some of the other steps we encourage people to do, I mean, we're not asking them to go out today and buy shredders, but I mean,
Yeah.
you get so much junk mail that may contain personal data in it that you would throw in the normal garbage can. You know, surprisingly, people can access that through a variety of means. Once you throw it out, it's just not there anymore, so
Right.
others can get access to it. If you shred those documents, then it's in your best interest to have that information destroyed.
Sure.
I know every case is different, but there's a lot of time spent for both the victim and the police department investigating these cases.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, out of many of the cases that we investigate in the police environment, I mean, these are very time-consuming cases. I mean, because you end up having to track down each individual use of the identity, you know, whether it's through fraudulent credit card use, whether it's through check forgery, but more importantly, it's usually not one occurrence that happens. I mean, we're talking multiple occurrences, and
Right.
each one is individualized. I don't think you can actually put a time as to how much each one takes. They are very independent of each other, but it takes a lot of time. And then as a victim, that too takes a lot of time, because they have to contact their bank, they have to contact their credit companies, and this isn't just a one-time event. They're consistently doing that. I mean, they may become a victim today and not know it, and then 6 months down the road, there may be occurrences of somebody using their identity. So this becomes, I don't want to say a lifelong venture, but it takes a long time before hopefully they're no longer victims of it.
Right. Well, quickly, can you talk about mail with taxes coming up and everything? People are getting a lot of.
Right. You know, same thing. I mean, most people know when their mail arrives at their house. I mean, we encourage them to get it out of the mailbox as soon as it arrives, as much as possible. And the same thing with outgoing mail. I mean, it used to be that people would put their outgoing, you know, bills in their mailbox, put the flag up to let the, you know, mailman know that they had outgoing mail. We highly encourage everybody to use the secure U.S. Postal Service mailboxes, just because once it's in there, others cannot gain access to it at that point. You know, if people put outgoing mail in their mailbox in the morning before they leave for work, pretty much anybody and everybody could have access to that. It's not going to happen all the time, but when
Right.
it happens, it can create another problem for the person, because if their checks are in there, then access to their accounts are in there and everything else. So those are the big things. I mean, with tax forms arriving in mailboxes nowadays, I mean, highly encourage people to get their mail out of their mailbox as soon as they're able to. The big thing, you know, mail theft combined with it, I mean, it happens frequently enough where people may not even know that they had mail stolen,
Right.
you know,
Yep.
which kind of goes back to, we encourage them to consistently check their credit reports at least once a year, just to see if anything has been created using their identity. So those are the big
Right.
things.
All right. Great information.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys. No problem.
We're going to take a short break, but first,
Here's this month's Maplewood Community Minute.
Winter and its sub-zero polar vortex temperatures have been pounding on us for what feels like forever. Don't make it worse by doing something that could cost you. Along with winter comes snow. It's important to remember in Maplewood you can't shovel your snow onto the street. If you do, it's the property owner or occupant's responsibility to remove it. This includes sand, dirt, and debris. If you don't, you can expect a letter from the city clerk giving you 3 days to remove it. And if you don't remove it, the city council may direct the street superintendent to clean it and charge you for it. Instead, maybe you can find some creative way of using the extra snow. Just think about it. I'm Nick Reckler, and I'll see you next time.
Maplewood welcomed 5 new officers to the police department. They were sworn in at a special meeting including Officers Demling and his partner Bricks, who we profiled in December.
We'd like to congratulate these new officers and the new mayor, Nora Slawick, who was also sworn in. If you haven't already seen it, take a look at this video from the Minnesota Department of Transportation.
The Maplewood woman driving this pickup truck plunged off the 694 bridge into a pond below. Surprisingly, she was okay, but it's a good reminder to slow down and pay attention.
Last month we talked winter driving safety, so remember, even if it's not snowing, the cold temperatures we've had this winter created black ice conditions, so please use caution.
During an enhanced DUI enforcement campaign that ended on December 31st, nearly 2,500 impaired drivers were arrested.
According to the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, over 24,000 people were arrested in Minnesota for drunk driving in 2013.
February is National Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month.
1 in 3 young people will experience some form of dating abuse. Carrie Schwecke is a clinical social worker with Health East Mental Health and Addiction Services. She joins us to talk about the issue. Welcome, Carrie.
Hi, thank you.
Welcome. How is teen dating violence defined?
Well, teen dating violence can be really in many forms. It doesn't only have to be physical, but it can be sexual, it can be emotional, it can even come down to stalking. Things as easy as making fun of somebody, maybe name calling, inappropriate text messaging, Facebook postings, those kinds of things.
And how common is that in the U.S.?
Well, in the United States, like you had said earlier, 1 out of 3 adolescents will experience it, which comes out to 1.5 million throughout nationwide that will experience teen dating violence within a year. So it's a growing problem, most definitely.
Wow.
Who would you say is most impacted?
Primarily, it is females between the ages of like 16 to 20 as the highest rate of partner violence.
What are some of the long-term effects that teen dating violence can have?
People who experience teen dating violence have a likelihood to continue that cycle while they'll be in unhealthy relationships in their future, more likely to be exposed or traumatized throughout college, higher issues of chemical dependency issues, depression, lower self-esteem, inability to cope with daily life stressors.
And how would families or communities be impacted by that?
Well, I think that when our youth are struggling with problems like that and it's creating long-term effects that not only affects individuals, but communities and families and how they function, needing more treatment services, becoming financial burdens, and just causing difficulty in the community. They have a tendency to sometimes, with chemical dependency issues, that can very easily become a community issue.
Sure. Well, these kind of relationships are really hard to leave. What do you suggest that teens can do?
Well, I think it's really important that they're able to identify somebody that they feel safe to talk to, that not necessarily is going to tell them what to do, but is willing to kind of be an open ear and somebody that's going to listen and not just tell them to get out of the relationship, because in an adolescent or a teenager's world, that relationship might be the biggest thing in their world at the time. So take time to understand that to them it's the biggest problem in their world, and to take time to listen to them and not just tell them, talk at them. I would think.
What is the community's involvement, or what's their responsibility to help stop this?
I think it's going to be really important to train professionals. I think that being proactive instead of reactive is important, so training professionals like in schools, teachers, social workers, community providers that maybe could come into schools and provide education to teenagers about what dating violence is really going to be the first step, and something that communities can very easily do.
Where can people get this help?
Well, there's obviously a lot of information online. Loveisrespect.org is a very good place, and it's very kid-friendly too, where they can go and they can ask questions. The National Domestic Abuse Hotline, they also receive text messages. They do text messaging, which is really nice for adolescents, because you know how much they like to text, and it makes it a little more less personal for them to reach out and ask for help.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Thank you for coming in and sharing that good
thanks for
information.
having me.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the
Thanks.
time. After the break,
We'll show you why Maplewood police officers got chilled for charity.
Heroes come from small towns. Our heroes from across the upper Midwest are coming home from wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Only now, some have a new battle to fight, unemployment. Hello, I'm Rocky Lynn, co-founder of Tribute to the Troops.
I'm Sergeant Dejan Farrell.
And I'm Captain Ron Jarvie. A survey of our troops serving overseas found 25% say employment is a major concern for them as they come home.
Right now, the unemployment rate for today's veteran is 12%. That's twice the average of others living here in the Heartland.
These service members learn quickly. They have experience with advanced technology and demonstrate teamwork, discipline, and leadership under difficult circumstances.
This year, Tribute to the Troops, the Armed Forces, and the Upper Midwest ME Chapter are asking you to hire our today's veterans. Employers, you've seen what these veterans have done for their country. Think what they can do for your business.
To hire today's veteran, visit positivelyminnesota.com/veterans.
Heroes come from small towns.
Extra DWI enforcement is now being served on Minnesota roads. Don't be what you drink.
Being exposed to sub-zero temperatures isn't just dangerous for humans, but also our pets.
Here's how to keep your pets safe during this frigid winter.
Common sense really needs to rule. If you're uncomfortable being outside, there's a good chance your dog, and we're talking about dogs primarily, there's a really good chance that your dog is uncomfortable as well.
It's been a cold winter with sub-zero temperatures hitting last month and causing schools to shut down for several days. With air temperatures that low, exposed skin can become frostbitten in 5 minutes. And like humans, our pets can suffer from hypothermia and frostbite.
We definitely have seen oftentimes cats that come in that have been strays for a period of time where they've lost their ear tips. They've lost their ear tips to frostbite. It's like someone losing a fingertip to frostbite. So it definitely can happen. That's a risk for an animal that's left outside too long, just like it would be for a person.
How long your pet can stay outdoors depends on their activity level and their coats. Larger dogs built for the cold can withstand longer periods outside, and for Arctic breeds or water dogs, the colder the better. If your dog is like mine and loves coming to the dog park no matter how low the temperature drops, you may have discovered he also loves to pick up and eat, something another dog has left behind.
There's definitely the potential for him to contract intestinal parasites by doing that. Why do dogs do that? It's an age-old problem. I think there's a combination of they unfortunately just like the flavor, and they like the taste. I always thought nature had taken care of that, but apparently not. And I think there's an aspect of play. You'll see some dogs that will grab these frozen stools and they'll toss them and play them and roll on them.
Another danger to pets is antifreeze, which contains a chemical called ethylene glycol. It has a sweet flavor that appeals to dogs and children. Make sure to clean up all spills and store the product out of reach. Even a small amount can cause kidney failure. Salt on sidewalks can irritate paws, so wash and dry them after they've been outside. And finally, pets rely on humans to care for them, so when their owners fail, it's our responsibility to help them.
It's one of those things that I think people worry about. What's it going to do to change your relations with your neighbors and things like that, and so everybody has to make individual judgments, but there certainly are such circumstances where reporting them is warranted in the best interest of the animal.
Talk to your veterinarian or check out these websites for more information. It comes around quickly each year.
For many officers, the anticipation is worse than the reality, but they take the plunge all for a worthy cause. Take a look.
We're going to have almost 2,000 people jumping into the freezing cold waters, so we're preparing today to get everything ready.
We were cutting a hole for the polar plunge for the Special Olympics and that there. And these guys contracted us to come down because we know how to cut ice and come down and cut them a hole.
What's kind of funny about it is it takes us about 3 days to set up for a plunge like this, and it takes us about 4 hours to tear it down, so it's kind of interesting in that respect. But we do it because we do it for the right reason. It's for the athletes of Special Olympics Minnesota.
The law enforcement has always been a great supporter of Special Olympics. It's a great thing, a community event. It's fun, people are upbeat. It's just it's a great experience. Way too cold though.
It's cold. It's cold. This is the worst part, is walking to the bus. In the water, it's fine.
It was a goal of ours this year to go completely under the water, as to kind of half jumping in there, and we did that. And jumping in, I don't know if they'll disagree, I don't think is as bad as just the steps up the ladder is when it really, really hits you. And we felt like the kid in Christmas Story grabbing the pole with your hand to get out. Now we're gonna, if we weren't on the fire department, we would have called the fire department to get us unstuck. So yeah.
Then you're standing on the platform and it's like, well, you can't back out now. But yeah, jumping in the water, you come out, and I was definitely, this year I was definitely doing one of the Well, we're braving it with hats and mittens and snowsuits on. They're braving it in the water with swimsuits, so I'm not feeling too bad for us.
And I just see these crazy people jumping into the water, so this is so cool.
This is our first polar plunge, so we're polar plunging!
This particular cause, I suffer, but I think it's worth it. I think Special Olympics is just a, just a great program.
Well, Lon, I'm sure everyone that participates in the polar plunge gets asked the question, what was it like?
Well, I can sum it up in one word. Cold.
Well, you did jump into icy water.
I did. Well, think of yourself standing out in maybe single-digit temperatures in your swimsuit and a t-shirt for about 10 minutes. Just when you think you're really freezing, then you jump in 32-degree water. Then you get out, your shirt sticks to you, freezes, and then you run 60 yards to warm up. It's quite pleasurable.
Well, all right then.
But I'm glad I did. It was a much worthy cause.
Well, absolutely.
Before we go, we'd like to remind you to check out our Facebook page. Like Your Police Report on Facebook and get updates, make suggestions, and talk to us.
Thanks for joining us this month.
We'll see you next time for another edition of Your Police Report.